starving alien girl gave up on life until a human's warm hands pulled her back from the cold. The world around her was white and endless. Snow fell from the gray sky, slow but heavy, each flake stinging against her skin like tiny knives. She couldn't feel her fingers anymore. Or her toes. Or maybe they were gone, it was hard to tell. Alien woman lay half buried in the snow, her body curled, her face turned toward the wind. Her breathing was slow, shallow. Every inhale felt like fire in her chest. Every exhale turned to mist that disappeared into the cold air. She had stopped fighting. There was no point now. Her ship was gone, blown apart in the sky. Her people had left her behind, just as they promised they wouldn't. She had waited for rescue for 3 days. No one came. Her stomach was empty, her lips cracked. Her eyes, once bright, were dull like frozen glass. She thought of her home, blue skies, green hills, the smell of warm rain. She thought of her mother's voice. She thought of the little stone she kept in her pocket, a good luck charm she had carried since childhood. She had lost it in the crash. A tear rolled down her cheek, turning cold before it reached her chin. She closed her eyes. This is the end. The wind screamed around her. It sounded almost like voices. She imagined them, her people calling, telling her to get up, to keep moving. But the voices faded, replaced by a deep, heavy silence. Her mind drifted. She felt herself sinking, not into the snow, but into darkness. Warm darkness. She would rest there. She would never wake again. And then, a touch, warmth, where there should have been only cold. Her eyes opened slowly, heavy as stone. At first, all she saw was blur, a shadow leaning over her. She blinked, and the shape came into focus. A face, a human face. His skin was pale from the cold, his breath visible in the air. Snow clung to his thick coat and hair. His eyes, strange, sharp, but not unkind, looked directly into hers. "You're alive," he said, his voice deep, slightly hoarse. She stared at him, too weak to speak. Humans were dangerous. Enemies. Why would one be here? Before she could think, strong arms slid under her, lifting her from the snow. She felt weightless for a moment, then pressed against his chest. His body was warm. She could hear his heartbeat. He looked down at her again. "Hold on." She wanted to ask why, but her lips wouldn't move. The human began to walk, his boots crunching in the snow. She could feel the wind tearing at his coat, but he held her close, shielding her from it. Her head rested against his shoulder. Every step he took was firm, careful, as if she was something fragile. The world swayed. The snow blurred into streaks of white and gray. She didn't know how long he carried her. Minutes. Hours. Time had stopped METTERIND. At one point, she thought. She heard him speak again, but it was muffled. Her vision darkened. She was falling asleep, and she didn't care. Her last clear memory was of a heavy wooden door opening with a loud creak. Warm air rushed over her like a wave, and then blackness. When she woke again, it was to the sound of something strange, soft and crackling. She blinked, finding herself wrapped in thick blankets on a bed she did not recognize. The air was warm, almost too warm, and the scent of something rich and savory filled her nose. For a moment, she thought it was a dream. But then she saw him sitting near a fire, feeding wood into it. The human. He noticed her looking. "Good," he said, his tone calm. "You're awake." Her voice came out as a whisper. "Why? What?" he asked. "Why? Save me." Her throat burned with each word. He didn't answer right away. He stirred the fire, sending sparks into the air. "Because you were dying," he said simply. She didn't understand. Enemies did not save each other. This had to be a trick. Her eyes narrowed, but her body was too weak to move. She decided she would watch him, wait for the truth to show itself. The human stood and walked toward her, carrying a steaming bowl. "Eat," he said, holding it out. She stared at the liquid inside, thick, brown, and smelling strange. Poison? He sighed, sat down beside her, and dipped the spoon into the bowl. Then he took a bite himself, chewing slowly before swallowing. Not poison, he said, meeting her eyes again. Now, eat. Hunger stabbed at her. She hated herself for it. But she reached for the spoon with shaking fingers. The first taste was hot and sharp on her tongue. She swallowed, and for the first time in days, felt something like life return to her chest. The human didn't speak again. He simply watched the fire, letting her eat in silence. She still didn't trust him. But as the warmth spread through her, she thought of the snow again, of how it had felt to be dying, and of the moment she had opened her eyes and seen him there. The fire's glow painted the wooden walls in shades of gold and red. Outside, the storm still howled, but inside the cabin, there was only the soft pop of burning logs. The alien woman sat up slowly, feeling the rough texture of the blanket against her fingers. Her body still ached, but the biting cold was gone. She glanced around wooden shelves lined with tools, jars, and strange human devices. It was small here, isolated, and nothing about this place felt safe. The man, the human, was at the far side of the room, leaning over a workbench. His coat hung on the wall, dripping melted snow into a bucket. Without the heavy layers, she could see the strength in his shoulders and arms, the way he moved with quiet purpose. He looked over his shoulder. "You're awake longer this time," he said. She didn't reply. Her eyes darted toward the door, then the small window beside it. Beyond the glass was only white. The storm was still raging, no escape yet. The man picked up the steaming bowl again and walked over. "Eat more," he said. "I don't want it," she murmured, pushing it away. His expression didn't change. He set the bowl on a small table beside the bed and shrugged. "Then starve, your choice." That caught her off guard. She had expected him to insist, maybe force her. Instead, he walked back to the workbench, his back to her as if she wasn't a threat at all. Her stomach growled. She hated that he could probably hear it. She picked up the spoon. The soup was different this time, thicker, with pieces of something soft. She didn't recognize the taste, but it was warm, and warmth meant life. She ate in silence, all the while keeping her eyes on him. "Where is this?" she finally asked. "A cabin," he said, not looking up. She clenched her jaw. "I know that. Where is it?" He glanced at her, his blue eyes unreadable. "Far from anywhere you'd want to be." She set the spoon down. "Why save me? We're not all eyes. My people left you to die." His voice was calm, but the words cut like a blade. "And I don't care who your people are. You were freezing in the snow. That's all I saw." For a long moment, she said nothing. He moved back to the fire, sitting in a chair that creaked under his weight. His gaze stayed on the flames. "Rest, you'll need it." Her eyes narrowed. "Need it for what?" He didn't answer. That night, she woke to the sound of his voice. It was quiet, almost like a whisper, coming from the corner of the cabin. Her eyes adjusted to the darkness, and she saw him sitting on the floor, speaking into a small device, no bigger than his hand. "Can't bring her there yet," he was saying. "Too dangerous. They're still searching the valley." She froze. "They? Who was he talking to?" He paused, listening to the device, then whispered, "I'll keep her hidden, as long as I can." Her pulse quickened. Was he hiding her from his own people, or keeping her for himself? She closed her eyes before he could notice she was awake. But her mind didn't rest. In the morning, she found him outside, chopping wood. The storm had calmed, but the world was still white and silent. She stepped onto the porch, the cold air hitting her face like a slap. He didn't stop working. "You should be inside," he said. She crossed her arms. "Are you keeping me here?" He slammed the axe into the log and looked at her. "I'm keeping you alive. If you walk too far Into that snow, you won't last an hour. Something in his voice made her believe him. Still, she hated the feeling trapped. Dependent on a human she didn't understand, she turned back toward the cabin. But as she reached the door, she noticed something in the snow. Tracks. Not his. Fresh ones. Her heart skipped. Someone else had been here. She glanced at him, but he was already watching her, his eyes sharp. Inside, he said, his tone leaving no room for argument. For the first time, she wondered if the storm outside was safer than whatever danger might be coming for her. Night fell quickly. By the time the fire was lit, the world outside the cabin had turned black, the snow reflecting only a faint, ghostly glow from the moon. The alien woman sat close to the flames, hands stretched toward the heat. She had been cold for so long that even now, with the fire licking her skin with warmth, she still felt a faint chill deep inside her bones. Elias, the human, was across the room, silently cleaning a long metal rifle. The soft scrape of cloth over metal was the only sound besides the fire's crackle. She hadn't told him. She'd seen the tracks outside earlier. She didn't trust him enough. But that secret sat heavy in her mind. Finally, she broke the silence. Someone was here today. He didn't look up. I know. Her eyes narrowed. You didn't tell me. You didn't tell me either, he said, sliding the rifle back together. His tone wasn't angry, just certain. She felt a sting of frustration. Who was it? Hunters, he said simply, setting the rifle down. Not for animals. The air between them grew colder despite the fire. Later that night, she pretended to sleep. The cabin was dark, shadows moving with the firelight. She heard him moving quietly, picking up his coat and something small from the table. She opened her eyes just enough to see him kneeling near the fire, speaking into that strange hand-sized device again. They're closer. I saw the smoke from their camp, he whispered. If they find the tracks leading here, he stopped, listening. A faint crackle of static answered him. He glanced toward her bed, and she quickly shut her eyes again, keeping her breathing steady. After a moment, his voice dropped even lower. I'll keep her safe, even if it means moving before she's ready. She lay awake long after he stopped talking, the words burning into her thoughts. Keep her safe. From who and why? She remembered the way he'd looked when he found her. In the snow, urgent, almost desperate. Not like a soldier rescuing an enemy, but like a man who had no choice. The next day, the storm was gone. Bright sunlight stabbed through the trees, making the snow sparkle like crushed glass. Elias was outside again, checking snares along the tree line. She stepped out onto the porch, blinking against the light. That's when she saw it. A small piece of fabric, caught on a branch at the edge of the forest. Black, stiff with frost, she moved toward it, her bare feet sinking into the snow. The cloth was torn, but there was a mark on it, a jagged silver emblem burned into the fibers. She knew that symbol. It belonged to the trackers. The same kind her people feared. Her chest tightened. If they were here, then Elias wasn't lying. Someone was hunting her. She turned back to the cabin just as Elias appeared from the trees, his expression shifting when he saw what she was holding. Drop it, he said sharply. She froze. I said drop it. She let the fabric fall to the snow. He walked over, picking it up and stuffing it into his coat pocket. They know you're alive, he said, his voice low. Which means they'll come faster now. Why? She asked. What do they want from me? He stared at her for a long moment, the firelight from the cabin flickering in his eyes. You, he said finally. Only you. The day was unnaturally still, no wind, no snow falling. Just the silence of deep winter, so quiet she could hear her own heartbeat. Elias moved around the cabin, checking shutters, locking doors. His eyes were sharper than usual, scanning the tree line every few minutes. The alien woman watched him from the bed. You're nervous, she said quietly. I'm ready, he corrected. For what? He didn't answer. That night, she woke to the sound of metal. Not the soft clink of his tools. This was sharper. Outside. She sat up, listening. The air in the cabin felt heavy, like it was holding its breath. Then footsteps. Slow, crunching. In the snow, stopping just outside the door. She glanced toward Elias's bed, but it was empty. A shadow moved past the frosted window. Tall, armored. Her throat went dry. The door burst open. A blast of icy wind swept through the cabin, carrying snow inside. Standing in the doorway was a figure in black armor, visor glowing faint red. In his hand a scanning device humming softly. The alien woman's instincts screamed at her to run, but her legs refused to move. The scanner beeped, louder now. The figure stepped inside. He swept the device across the room, and its glow brightened when it pointed toward her. Her hands gripped the blanket so tight it hurt. Then Elias appeared behind the intruder, silent as a shadow. Before the armored figure could turn, Elias swung something heavy, a short metal bar striking the side of the helmet. The visor flickered. The intruder stumbled forward, dropping the scanner. Elias grabbed him by the collar and slammed him against the wall. A muffled grunt escaped from behind the visor. The alien woman watched, frozen, as Elias ripped the weapon from the man's belt and tossed it aside. A quick, brutal struggle followed, Elias moving with the precision of someone who had fought before. He drove the man to the floor, pinned him, then struck him again until the visor went dark. The cabin was silent again, except for Elias's breathing. He looked up at her, his voice low but urgent. "They found us," she swallowed. "Who was that?" "Not the last one," he said, already dragging the body toward the door. "We have to move, now." She hesitated, glancing at the fallen scanner still glowing faintly on the floor. Its light pulsed like a heartbeat, almost alive. Elias noticed and kicked it hard, sending it into the fire. Sparks exploded as the device melted in the flames. He turned to her. "Get dressed. We leave in 5 minutes." For the first time since he found her in the snow, she believed him completely. They were out of time. The storm returned the moment they stepped outside. Snow whipped across the clearing in wild, twisting waves. The wind howled like something alive, clawing at their clothes and faces. Elias shoved a heavy coat into her hands. "Put it on. Keep your head down." She obeyed, her fingers clumsy from the cold. The moment she pulled the hood over her head, he grabbed her arm and pulled her into the trees. The forest was a maze of shadows and white. Their boots crunched in the snow, the sound loud in her ears. Somewhere behind them, another sound rose low at first, then growing. Engines. Her heart skipped. "They're following us." "They were always going to," Elias said without looking back. "Keep moving." A sudden light swept through the trees, pale beams cutting across the snow. She and Elias dropped to the ground. The light passed, just meters away, scanning the forest like a blade slicing through the dark. Her breath fogged the air in front of her. She tried to keep it quiet, but every inhale felt too loud. The beam moved on. Elias tapped her shoulder. "Go." They moved fast, sometimes running, sometimes crouching low. The snow slowed them, but it also covered their tracks almost as soon as they made them. Twice, she stumbled. Twice, Elias caught her without breaking stride. After what felt like hours, they reached a half-collapsed mining station, a skeleton of steel and rust in the snow. Inside, the air was still and cold. Shadows stretched long across the walls from the small fire Elias quickly built. She sank to the floor, her chest aching. "I can't keep running." "You can," he said simply, checking his rifle. "Because if you stop, they win." The wind outside screamed, masking every sound except one. A crunch, slow, deliberate. She looked at him, her eyes wide. He raised a finger to his lips, motioning for silence. Then he moved to the doorway, rifle ready. The footsteps came closer. Her Body tensed, every instinct screaming to hide, to vanish. The doorframe filled with a shadow. Elias fired once. The shot cracked through the air, echoing into the storm. The shadow fell. But behind it, more shapes move in the snow. They know where we are, Elias said, grabbing her hand. We don't stay. They ran again, deeper into the frozen dark. The storm swallowed them whole, but she knew the hunters were still behind them. And the night was far from over. They didn't stop running until the storm swallowed every sound behind them. By the time Elias found the cave, her legs were trembling so badly she could barely stand. Inside, the air was still heavy with the scent of damp stone. Elias lit a small fire near the back, its glow painting the rough walls in gold. For a long time, neither of them spoke. She sat on a flat rock, pulling the blanket tighter around her shoulders. Her skin still ached from the cold, but her mind burned with questions. Finally she asked, "Why are you doing this?" Elias didn't look at her. He was busy pulling something from his pack, a small metal flask. "You won't believe me." "Try me," she said. He sighed, taking a sip before setting the flask down. "My sister. She was 10 when the war started." 10. She didn't care who started it. She just wanted to see the sky without smoke in it. His voice was steady, but there was a tightness there, like every word scraped his throat. She didn't make it. Crossfire. Wrong place, wrong time. A human patrol and an alien patrol fighting over nothing. She was just there. The fire popped. The sound made her flinch. Elias stared into the flames. "After that, I hated your kind, all of you. Didn't matter if you'd never held a weapon, you were the enemy." She shifted, unsure if she wanted to hear the rest. But he glanced at her, his eyes darker in the firelight. "When I found you in the snow, you didn't look like a soldier. You looked like her, scared, cold, alone. And I realized I couldn't let it happen again." She swallowed, her throat tight. "My people left me," she admitted quietly. "We were retreating. I was injured. They called me expendable." Elias's jaw clenched. "War makes monsters out of everyone." She met his gaze for the first time. "Why not just turn me in? You'd be safe by now." "Safe," he repeated, almost bitterly. "Safe doesn't mean anything if you've lost yourself to get it." For a moment, there was only the fire between them, its light dancing on the cave walls. She didn't trust humans. She didn't trust anyone. But something about his words, about the way he hadn't tried to justify saving her, made her chest ache in a way she didn't understand. Outside, the wind howled through the narrow cave opening like a warning. "They'll keep coming," she said. "I know." "And if they catch us?" He looked at her, his expression unreadable. "If they catch us, I'll make sure they only take me." Her heart lurched. "No," a sound cut her off, faint at first but growing louder. The low, pulsing hum of engines. They both froze. The hunters had found them again. The hum of engines grew into a roar, vibrating through the cave walls. Shadows danced across the entrance as searchlights cut through the storm. Elias's hand tightened around his rifle. "They're here." The alien woman's pulse pounded. In her ears, "We can still run." He shook his head. "Not in this weather. Not with them this close. Running would just give them our backs." His voice was steady, but his eyes were saying goodbye. He moved quickly, pulling small metal canisters from his pack and placing them near the cave mouth. She realized they weren't just canisters, they were charges. "You're going to blow the entrance," she said, her voice sharp. "That's the idea," he replied. "It'll slow them long enough for you to get away. I'm not leaving you." "You will," he said firmly, loading the rifle. "Because if they catch you, they'll make you wish they'd left you to die in the snow." The first figure appeared at the cave's edge, black armor gleaming in the searchlight sweep. Elias fired, the shot echoing like thunder. The figure dropped, but more followed, their visors glowing red in the darkness. She grabbed the second rifle from the pack. Her hands shook, but she raised it anyway. Then we stand together. For a heartbeat, Elias looked at her, something unreadable in his eyes. Then he nodded. Together then. The cave erupted into chaos. Gunfire cracked. Sparks flew as bullets struck stone. The air filled with the sharp scent of burning metal from the charges. She moved where Elias told her, firing when she could, ducking when the air hissed with incoming rounds. Her heart felt like it would tear through her chest, but she kept going, because he was still fighting, and she refused to be the reason he fell. One of the armored hunters broke through the line, rushing toward her. Before she could react, Elias was there, slamming the man back into the wall. The sound of bone and metal colliding echoed painfully loud. Another blast rocked the cave. The first charge had gone off, filling the entrance with smoke and rock fragments. "They'll try to push through," Elias shouted. "Second charge now." She didn't think, she just moved, hitting the detonator. The explosion shook the ground under her feet, collapsing part of the cave mouth. Silence. The roar of engines outside had faded. The only sound was her ragged breathing and the faint crackle of the fire deeper inside the cave. "They're gone?" she whispered. "For now," Elias said, lowering his rifle. She looked at him, his coat torn, a thin line of blood down his cheek. "You could have left me that night in the snow," she said softly. He met her gaze. "And you could have let me fight alone just now." The space between them was quiet, but it was a different kind of quiet than the cold, empty one from before. This one felt alive. She stepped closer. "I closed my eyes that night because I thought my story was over," she said. "You made me open them again." Elias gave a faint smile, the first she'd seen from him. "Then I guess we keep them open, together." Outside, the storm howled over the sealed cave, but inside, the fire burned steady. For the first time in a long time, she felt warm.